buy less, choose well, make it last. That's the sort of like a narrative we have going, and we even though it hurts business short term, we believe that people in the future will see through some of the big brands who are just like adding to the problem and not doing anything to prevent it. Everyone puts profits first, and we said yeah, we put impact first.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gil, and this is Wes, and welcome to the brand new podcast, The Leaf Colectivo. As always, we'll be speaking with some fantastic guests and sharing honest stories on direct-to-consumer brand building, e-commerce marketing, and work culture in this modern era. If you heard our first episode, you will know that I'm the CEO of Leaf. We're a tech company and performance marketing specialist for e-commerce, working with everybody from fast-growing upstarts all the way to global titans and the weird and beautiful in between. Today is a special day for me and for us as a company to have Robin from Vinokilo with us. Robin is the CEO and leader of Europe's leading vintage clothing brand, Vinokilo. Robin, welcome.
Thanks a lot. Honored to be here.
Let's start at the beginning, right? I mean, Robin, you and I and us, go back quite a bit, right? I mean, a few years ago, we met in Estonia when we were given really the very first steps of Leaf Music, and equally funny enough, you were given the first steps with the Parquet, which was the what existed before.
How long ago was that, Gil? Like how many years ago? No,
that was 8 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. Yeah, 2013. Actually, it's about this time in 2013 that we were in Estonia. Actually, I got notified of it recently. So yeah, crazy times, and the one the circles of the world. But I mean, tell us a little bit about kind of like that early days, for you and vintage, and this whole something that right now is super normal, but I think at the day was pretty new.
Yeah, 100%. So it's just to bring it, maybe everyone in the audience back, like 8 years ago, I did actually an internship for I think that at that time one of the five accelerators which existed in Europe, Startup Wise Guys, and that's where I met Gilbert, Helga, Daniel, Melvin, working for Leaf Music at the time, and yeah, I think we clicked very soon. I think Leaf FM was absolute superstar of the cohort, and yeah, for me at the time an absolute role model. I learned loads from just seeing yeah, how Gilbert interacted with all the mentors, and what sort of priorities he set for the team, and yeah, it was a early inspiration for myself, and somehow in that time I started my own business, and I started my first company, which was called Dark Decade, which was sort of like a Tinder for closets, and yeah, at that time the sort of like Tinder was just about to get really hyped, and we had I had the idea to create a Tinder-like app which facilitates the swapping and sharing of clothes. And yeah, I made some experience in Estonia, especially at the flea markets there, which sort of yeah, drove yeah, my feeling towards solving one of, I think, humanity's biggest problems about the clothing waste we as humans produce throughout the world. And a bit fast forward now, my company, Dark Decade, at the time, I know it's a bit hard to pronounce, didn't fly so well and had to close it. But somehow, while closing it, a new company came up, and that was Vinokilo. And Vinokilo is still what I'm doing today. It's like Gilbert said, it's Europe's leading, one of Europe's leading vintage brands. We sell with our events vintage clothes in 10 different countries throughout Europe, plus with our e-commerce store supply thousands of people with yeah, secondhand clothes as a first-hand alternative. And with that, we want to stop the way people consume and use the existing instead of producing new.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really humbling, to walk through the warehouse and seeing the sheer size of the operation. Sometimes, for us, it's so difficult sometimes to imagine what sits behind the scenes in many ways, because we get to interact through this four worlds of of Zoom calls, right? But having had the opportunity to walk there, to see it in firsthand, what goes on behind there. For those in the audience, Vinokilo runs out of a little village in the north of Mainz in Germany. Beautiful village, wine country. But it's amazing, that from there you touch every single city in Europe through events, but also the world, directly from the e-commerce play. I know the last 2 years have been very difficult, given what the world's been going on, especially when Vinokilo at the time was pretty heavily events driven. That was an opportunity for you guys to reinvent yourself. I know we just finished October. It's the very best month you guys ever had in in the history of Vinokilo, but also you back to being profitable after a year, right? So I mean, it's some amazing stuff. I'm super happy that we actually get to do this. The week after the announcement came, but congratulations, Robin. But also like it's not been easy, right? And I think the story of Vinokilo coming to till today, it's a story of relentless pursuit, really, as any other enterprises.
Should I say maybe like two, three words about the magnitude? I mean, like going into our warehouse is around like 6,500 square meters, and we have 700,000 items, vintage, one of a kind clothing items sitting there at all times. And yeah, we have, I think now in October, we had around 90,000 visitors at our events, which I think is absolutely crazy. Of course, we also had 5 weekends, but still 90,000 people is just insane. And yeah, we had yeah, we've now done sales this month just on the event side of 2 million, and that was I think an absolute record in Vinokilo's history. And yeah, we're of course also very thankful there to get some support from Leaf. And yeah, so that is yeah, it's a really good feeling after 12 months of not making a profit, and us as a business, we are without investors. We grew the business from like a small event in a 100 square meter flat to where we are now, just by just having a good business model, by producing good cash flows and just growing out of that. And then Corona hit us, and it was, we were not used to not having money, right? It was crazy to make month after month a loss, and October feels really good.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that is interesting, and really, like at Leaf, early this year, we put our heads together and start talking about the values, right, and cultural building, especially as Leaf has been growing quite a bit over the last 12 months. I mean, we tripled the size of our company and continue to grow. It's easy to keep the culture and building that culture, from the founders to those early members. But as you grow, and especially when you're growing fast, it means that you really need to be a little bit more intentional about the things that you put forward. I know in one of the posts recently that you share, you talk about human first decisions, right? And that's something that at Leaf, we share with you guys. One of our values, our core value is being people first. For us, it came because we have to put that into place, several times throughout the history of Leaf, especially after the pivot from Leaf Music to Leaf Grow. But more importantly, like it is in those difficult times when you get tested. It's very easy to put those values forward when things are rosy and everything is growing, but then when the hard times hit is when you get tested. You were very conscious about that, through whole period, especially as you guys transition. How do you guys came to that, and especially you, right? I mean, this is the leader of the team there.
Yeah, in many ways. I mean, generally, we made a conscious decision throughout Corona that we want to, um, not let anyone in the company go. It was not an easy decision to make, simply because like we have a lot of people who have come from war zones and who through us got their very first job. We fixed the paperwork for them, and they were full on dependent and built a future on Vinokilo. So for us, it was not like a way of just saying, hey, we're cutting costs and letting you go, but we had to make very, very tough decisions throughout the whole Corona times, and we really said, and this is one of the sort of values I've been brought up by my parents with, right? Is that in the end of the day, it's about the many acts of kindness, about how you treat people around yourself, and that is something I think everyone in Vinokilo has taken in, and and that's what we live and stand by.
Where, when we came over to Germany to visit you guys, we really felt that you're the only client of ours that have treated us like we were the client, which was like flipping this whole thing on its head. I remember like we were out for dinner one night and sneaking away so I could pay, because we'd been there for 10 days and it was getting to the point where it was getting embarrassing. Like, right, okay, we need to at least pay for one meal or something, right? But no, genuinely, like, you guys treated us like part of the family, and we feel like at Leaf we're exactly the same. We've got a people first approach. It's really easy to say that, and it's really, really difficult to do it. You've got to make sacrifices to do that, and sometimes you've got to make decisions that looks like you're putting the company first, but sometimes you've got to put the company first to put the people first, because otherwise you're not going to have a company to employ the people. So it's this really difficult balancing act. And I think for us, having this people first approach is about, it's a benchmark and it's an aspiration. It's there to keep us, to hold us to account and to keep us on the right path. And I really felt that when I came over to visit you guys. The way you treated us, the way all your staff treated us was magic. And I think it's great working with people like that. We want to work with like-minded people, and not just in business. We're spending the vast majority of our waking hours at work. And if you're going to do that, you want to work with good human beings and
Exactly.
and have the same feeling and beliefs, right?
Yeah, exactly. You want to spend it with people who you love and trust, and I know it sounds crazy, and I think there's every second the book written out of Silicon Valley says don't start a business with your friends. We in Vinokilo, we did the opposite. Like, we are all
Same.
friends, and many, right? Because in the end, building a business is tough. Building a business means it has a lot to do with trust, and you spend a lot of time at home, and you just want to spend it with people you love, right? And that's the big difference, right?
Yeah, and it's the investment, right? I mean, I was at awe to see your dad and your mom supporting you, right? I mean, and in an amazing way, right? I mean, your dad was the chief operating officer of Condor, one of Lufthansa's airlines, and like, he has a ton of of wisdom and experience, and seeing him there walking the halls of Vinokilo, working with the staff, like providing coaching and support, even to me, like, you spend an hour with me.
Yeah.
I was like, Uber, let's talk for an hour. But I mean, it's
But
amazing
getting
to
his
see
hands dirty as
that,
well, right?
yeah.
And not acting like some big corporate dude. He's just like one of the team. I thought that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad, I think he always tells me, I think he was the COO of Condor, but also head of cabin crew for Thomas Cook for a long time. He had like 50,000 people working for him, and he really, like, he said to me, like, here at Vinokilo, I can really make true impact. There's so many people in need and so many lives we're changing, and that is very, very special and very different to what he had experienced in a big corporate, where you have you just so many small wheels, and that, he's really, like all of us, giving 150,000% every day to make it work.
Obviously, we were talking about this. I mean, it's kind of, I don't want the episode to become political, but at the end of the day, it's political in many ways, because as companies, we take stands, right? In terms of who we work with and who we choose not to work with. At least at Leaf, we're very conscious with the brands that we onboard. We want to make sure that these are brands that we feel comfortable putting our brands next to. And but equally, like in your case, Robin, I mean, Vinokilo stands for a lot of things, right? I mean, as a brand, as a against fast fashion. You even we're quite vocal, a few months ago about why you choose not to put Klarna, which is a very well known buy now pay later kind of setup, which at the moment is kind of like on everybody's almost setups, right? How do you put that as part of the business in many ways?
Just to give the people more context, like we said, like generally Vinokilo, we take clothes which are thrown away and we reuse them as an alternative to fast fashion at our events and online. And generally, what's happening is that many people use buy now pay later service providers to increase conversions. And we had the feeling that especially Klarna gives a lot of young people who are not who don't know about credit schemes and who are sort of like caught into a consumption cycle. They get those people to just keep buying, keep buying, and wear once and then throw out. And we wanted to make a statement towards that and really like say, hey, come to us, come to Vinokilo, right? And if you find something, rather have buy less, choose well, make it last. That's the sort of like a narrative we have going, and we even though it hurts business short term, we believe that people in the future will see through some of the big brands who are just like adding to the problem and not doing anything to prevent it. Everyone puts profits first, and we said we put impact first.
Yeah, and
I mean, it's a bold move.
I think it
And
costs 36% conversion. It increases, right? If you have Klarna in your checkout system, right? You guys are the experts in that, Austin.
yeah, I mean, we've used Klarna with a few of the brands where like the single items are more expensive to amortize the cost across a few months, and
Exactly.
it lowers it has lowered the cost of acquisition and increased conversion rates. So, and it makes our job as marketers, performance marketers, a little easier. But at the end of the day, you set the culture for the company, and the partners that you work with have got to line up behind that culture. So, and then we've got to find alternative means to be able to lower the cost of acquisition and to drive growth. I think you've obviously, this brings me on to some of the stuff I was really interested in asking you about. Some of the challenges between the two sides of the business. You've got your experiential side of the business, so running events in about 118 cities across Europe, and we run I think 9 or 10 a week or something. And then you've got the e-com store. That is, and I mean that's been a serious challenge for us as marketers to line up those two customers and have a single customer view. How do you see that? How do you see that progressing into the future? I mean, what's the vision for the experiential side and the e-com side of the business? And my point, just to rewind a little bit, is that actually, we don't need Klarna for a company like Vinokilo. You've got the experiential side of the business, which is amazing for introducing the brand to people, and they really feel that it's a tangible, it's a physical, it's a tangible experience. Probably the best way of introducing someone to a brand if you can do it. But yeah, what does the future look like and the challenges look like for experience and e-com for Vinokilo?
Yeah. How did you call it? To have the single point of customer view. Yeah. So I think that is, just in all honesty, this is what we thought about from day one of building Vinokilo, and then just simply because we have some blind spot, we're no experts in so many different fields, we didn't dare to think about it until Leaf came in and just said, hey, you know what, you guys have like every weekend 15,000-20,000 people coming to your events. you have an e-commerce store and ads, which costs shitloads of costs of ads, right, to get traffic to your website. Why don't we bring these two together? Like, and that was the first time we actually we went back to it. And I think that it is the main challenge, right? How do we get the 100,000 people are coming in through our events every month to understand Vinokilo as a service throughout the whole year, where they can buy secondhand clothes online and offline whenever they need, instead of just going to H&M around the corner and buying something fast fashion. So that is one of the main challenges, and but it's also something really exciting for us.
Yeah, and I think another challenge I think for us last year was you guys not running a sale around this time of the year, right? And we've worked with a few companies who like, yeah, we don't want to get involved in the Q4 sales period. It's a race to the bottom. It's not healthy. It's driving up advertising costs, but also demand is greater at this time of year. And our kind of message to you guys, and via Perry, shout out to Perry, who works for Vinokilo, she's a star. Was if you're not on sale, people are going to go and shop with fast fashion, because H&M's going to be on sale, Urban Outfitters is going to be on sale, Nike, Adidas. So actually you potentially losing those customers that would buy from you, because they're generally younger, your customers as well, and they're probably a bit more price sensitive than people like me who are old and over the hill. So yeah, I mean that must have been a tricky, not a tough pill to swallow, but I think it was a big culture change for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it helped us. I mean, you guys helped us rethink this whole thing, and generally just to understand, we still don't believe that us going in this sort of race to the bottom with all the fast fashion brands is the way to go. But we can still, with a smart communication strategy, we can offer the people to buy something secondhand instead of firsthand, and that is what we are doing this year. And sadly, we don't. The whole sort of sales plan is starting over the next days, so I don't have any results to show. But I'm sure.
But it's also being creative, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that some of the stuff that we're doing with you guys, about around the drops, and like this is also one of the beauties of Vinokilo is not only like but it's the sheer quality of garments that you guys
Yeah.
carry, right? I like to think that a lot of that like you carry from everything from Gucci, Burberry, all the way to a lot of the stuff that is in core fashion right now. I mean, and we're living through this kind of like cyclical effort, right? I mean, and in which that vintage is it's almost like NFTs, right? I mean, in itself, they actually grow in value with time, and also like curating that, like it was crazy to walk through the warehouse and seeing the curators and seeing the pickers and seeing the people that actually are combing through all those hundreds of tons of of clothes that you guys carry, and then curating and taking some of those things online. We're about to go live with a collection of vintage amazing quality drops, right? I mean, includes things like that goes from things like Disney vintage, really high quality stuff, to things like the Bulls. When I was walking and
Chicago
saw the
Bulls,
drop
yeah.
in the saw the drops in the warehouse, I was like, shit, I
Yeah.
need to go and queue for that stuff. But I mean, it's just amazing, right? I mean, the quality of that, but also being creative about how do you take
How do you
those,
market those, right?
and how do you balance, right? I mean,
Yeah.
between the events and then actually the whole online presence in many ways, right?
Yeah.
And how do you actually, something that I was really interested in when I came over is actually vintage clothing. There is a finite amount of vintage clothing.
Yeah.
And actually, as people, and then obviously there is a supply, because something that somebody wears today can become vintage tomorrow, right? But how do you, I'm really interested in how you see the challenge, how you see the future of the experiential side and the e-com side, and this challenge with the supply chain.
No. So it is, I mean, it is a challenge. I mean, vintage is booming like it's never done before. And for us, vintage is everything sort of from the 60s to the 90s. or at least that's what we get. I mean, we get some 50s stuff as well, but it's very rare. But yeah, how do we see it with the finite, and how in the future is generally that yeah, I mean, generally it we have to, I mean, we stand for quality, right? So we really make sure that the items we select and take back from people what they've thrown away, we make sure that we just take the items which are in good condition. And yeah, we are constantly trying to find new sources, and trying to make sure we perfectionate the process there and pick out the items which people don't want anymore. So we have services at our events where people can give back the clothes they don't want anymore, and we have services online where they can send us the clothes they don't want anymore. So that's how we're trying to cover for the finite resources there are in the vintage world.
And it's interesting, this whole evolution, right? I mean, through the whole pandemic, we've been indoors for the most part until we went to Germany. uh, but you know, like just on the weekend, me and Helga went to the city, and it is crazy to see vintage now hitting the high street, right? Or as we call it here in you know in the UK, the high street, right? It's becoming, you know, it's like they're having like, you know, brick and mortar. I know you guys have in Mainz as well, and it's starting to experiment a little bit with like brick and mortar stores. But seeing, you know, like a vintage store next to, you know, one of the you know, the high fashion ones is super interesting, and is part of this evolution, is part of, you know, the massification of the, you know, the of vintages and second hand in general, right? I mean, it's part of
Yeah.
this
I
whole
mean,
reusability part of, you
yeah, I
know,
mean, when we started, you know, like we had like 1 out of 10 people buy second hand, and now it's like 7 out of 10. So us sitting at home, watching fashion brands burn their seasonal products because they couldn't sell during COVID times, has really added to the awareness of consumers, who are now all flocking out and saying, hey, it's not cool to buy an item which has been produced in the hundred thousands and millions, right? But they just want to have one of a kind items which yeah, someone has thrown away and want to reuse it. So we really see this change of wanting to be unique, look unique, but also to be conscious about the purchase one does.
now, obviously, you know, at this moment, we're sitting on the rosy side of the story, right? With Vinokilo, we're making it, you know, and we have a super rosy outlook. Um, Looking back, you know, what would you think is it was one of the hardest parts of, or the hardest lessons learned, you know, for you?
Okay, hardest lessons learned. I think, I mean, there's many. I'll just name a few. So one was, we as a a business which grew out of a cash flow. We did, in looking back, we didn't have enough buffer on our accounts when COVID hit, right? So we had 1 month, maybe 1.5 months working capital, and that, looking back, was too little. So when we had, I think COVID hit in Germany 17th of March, we canceled 120 events, and yeah, we were not prepared for it. So that was one thing I definitely I criticize a lot. And then also, I mean, just very openly, like in October 2020, another COVID lesson I learned was we had a really good month. I think the best month at that time in Vinokilo's history, and we decided, hey, you know what? October has been really good. We've lost a lot of money this year. How about we invest a bit more now and get out of the crisis faster? And I think we were a bit too bullish or egoistic driven in that moment, because second wave hit, and yeah, we didn't have enough set aside to navigate through the another 5 months of the corona, right? So that these are two things which I've painfully learned during corona times, and been recently reflecting a bit on them. um, yeah, and the third one, I mean, that is one thing I feel very painful about is not building up the e-commerce sooner. I think the e-commerce side of the business we saw actually since day one, but we somehow said, hey, let's focus on one side of the business and execute it well, and then use the money from the one side of the business to fund the other. But somehow we've also lost a lot of experimentation time in that sense, and sometimes I feel if we would have started back in 2016, 17, full on with e-commerce, it would have been really good for us.
Hindsight, everything is 2020, though.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I
we're
mean,
here, right? I mean, it is growing. It's shifting now. Something that is very special about you guys is that you're cash flow driven. You're bootstrapped, right? You're also creative, right? You make a lot of the use of services like like Clearbank and things like that, where it allows you to to
uncapped, yeah.
finance some of the ad spend and and some of the capital without actually having to give away like any
Equity, yeah.
any stage in a stake in the company.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through some of that? I mean, we were skeptics at first, and obviously, like on our side, despite the fact that we get involved, pretty heavily on the performance side, of the, of the operation and the demand generation side of it, we get very little view into the actual operations of, of a brand, right? I mean, we get as far as understanding unit economics, for the brand to make sure that those inform the, the KPIs that we're driven. But what what would be the, the your lessons or shares or, for brands out there, and entrepreneurs out there who are building bootstrap cash flow driven businesses, and like what has been like some of the great, and I know you laugh because it's hard as well, but you've done well, like in after the fact though.
I mean, it's I really appreciate the funny thing is I think I it seems somehow this sort of like funding has been very glorified. I somehow feel that people don't or companies don't focus on building a business, but just focusing on getting funding, and that is something which I feel weird about, because sometimes if you really look deep, you realize, hey, you're just manipulating numbers to get investors to fall into that I call a Ponzi scheme, and
Here is a converter that used to work on the start, side of things.
yes, so that's how I see it sometimes, and very often is if you think about it, you can actually grow and fund your business yourself, and very often it has to do with payment terms, with tax payment terms, with supplier terms, and you can negotiate those, or you can work them in a way to your advantage. And in the end, I mean, like I have to say, we're working on it with Leaf at the moment to get this going in the post COVID times, but in the pre-COVID times, it was we had a spreadsheet which was like, okay, how many events are we going to run? How much traffic do we need to bring to those events to get how many tickets? When we know how many like pre-sign up or tickets, or it could be also how many people are pressed going interested on Facebook. We would know how many people would actually convert to the events. We would know how much the average basket size is, how many people coming to the events would convert to actual buyers, and then we just work those numbers to the revenues, and then we knew already which events are worthwhile to run, which ones are not, and we knew how much cash they would produce every month. So it was just putting in the numbers, and and we were 1 to 2% off from our predictions in the pre-corona times. And I can really give this to many people to really not, if you spend half a year looking for investors versus spending half a year on really finding a business model that works for you, I would take the latter, right?
And that's key, right? I mean, and I think we've learned that as well, right? I mean, when we pivoted Leaf, we pivoted with very, very little cash. We only had less than 3 months worth of runway in the bank. Equally to you, although our payroll was a lot smaller than yours. We decided not to take, not to let go of anybody. Like the founders, we took a pay cut, massive one, just to help, like see through the time, but we conquered, right? I mean, but also I think it pushes you to be able to build that rock solid business model, right? I mean, for me, especially the day that we live in today, when pre-seed rounds are going through the roof, stupid valuations on an idea, without execution experience or any of those things, but seeing it where you really need to work out. I mean, similar to you, I mean, we work out of a spreadsheet up until recently, right?
Yeah.
Where we were tracking our fixed costs and ins and all that. Luckily, we now have an amazing CFO with us, but that is helping us, build this into a system and into a machine that really help us forecast into the future. But it's difficult, right? But also, this is the stuff that a lot of entrepreneurs thinks, or even if they think it a lot later.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah. I think that was something how we looked at it, and let's see. I mean, we're working at the moment with. I know we live on predicting again very precisely how many pre-signups to every event we will have, and that will help us also estimate again what revenues we can expect, and we can build so much on our forecasting and our growth on that, and that is just fantastic.
So I mean, I think we're getting to the end of our time, here. I mean, I think we could be, because we've done it before, just a long time ago, not too long ago, spent hours talking. But we wanted to take the chance. We thought we were going to record this back in Germany all together, but it was quite busy. Robin, I mean, it's a pleasure to see you guys work. It's a pleasure to work with you guys. All of the challenges that we live as a business, are we share a lot of those, but I think we also help each other in growing, and the way we see it as a with a lot of our the great majority, if not all of our customers. But what do you think are like 3 takeaways, like for businesses today, like from what you've seen, also, like things that you've learned, maybe from us, because sometimes it's, if there is any, as well, from that could help businesses out there. We talk a lot about, brands. I mean, there is 2022 around the corner, like how do you prepare for that?
So it's funny. I mean, like one thing what I've learned really recently from you guys is not to hide off hide off a wish or a vision of the business, because I think it's not possible to build because we don't have the capacity in-house. I think it's important to really also think beyond your capacities, and also look around who can help you with, right? And that was you've actually, you said this to Perry, you said this to me, right? Don't shut off, but rather like tell us what you want so we can help you. That is something I've kept in mind a lot. I think
Just to add to that exact mentality, and the businesses, you push us when you don't have any limitations to your ideation and to your desires and your requests. You push us to solve these challenges, and you keep us very, very sharp at the very front, bleeding edge of this. So we need that.
Yeah, and I mean the way you now said this, to not have these limitations, that is honestly for an entrepreneur the most sort of best feeling you give, because in the end, like I see us sometimes, like as artists, as creatives, like we want to create and we don't want to work in a box, like then. Yeah, that's one thing. The second thing is really like I feel, even though, like it's we're a big organization, I feel that accountability is something, like really important, especially when you grow very fast. You have to build up middle management. You have to build up people who are accountable, who are passionate, accountable, but also who are long term with you and who want to create. That's sort of the second thing I learned. And yeah, the third thing is, maybe you guys have a third thing.
Well, while you think about the third thing, just on what you were saying there, obviously you mentioned it earlier on about building a business, typical Silicon Valley bullshit. Don't build a business with friends, and then you speak to people who've actually built a good business, and they're like, definitely build a business with friends and people you can trust, and you want to spend a lot of time with. I know there's lots of people we could mention in your company, but obviously one in particular, the Mushroom King, Mr. Mr. Tomislav, who looked after us, treated me, Gil, personally like brothers, and really looked after us. So I want to give a shout out to Tomche for driving us around everywhere and treating us like family. And you've got a good one there for sure.
100%. Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. And maybe along that line, friendships, I mean, just very openly, I would advise everyone to ask for help. And I don't know if Gil talks about this, but he has 3-4 times, I think, on really busy evenings, busy days, says, Robin, let's jump on a half an hour call. And it was like 2.5 hours, or, and he was giving me advice. And it was like, in that moment, it was such crucial advice because it unhinged something I was really blocked in. So yeah, really ask for help in your network, right? And a network of friends, and that really thanks for that. And I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I'll just go for it. I would love to spin the ball also towards you guys, right? What is for you at the moment, right, at Leaf, the sort of next challenges you guys are facing, and which you are specifically excited to fix?
I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, we spend a lot of nights, going through this, or mornings. Like this morning was ringing me at 7 a.m, like just because there's something nagging in there. Like
Just
that's a
need
different
to align on something before I have my 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it is about scale, right? It's about making sure that as you scale, you're able to retain the same level of quality of service. It's about, making sure that, that substance that makes us leave remains. I mean, we are a tech company, first. We're a service company second, but it's the service that drives us, to what we do. We start every all hands, with one quote that says, "People don't exactly remember what you did or say; they will always remember how you made them feel." Now, we use this not just for the way you know, we interact with customers. We try to really put this into everything that we do within ourselves, right? And making sure that the people that we're bringing into the business, I was telling Wes this morning, as we scale and as we look at next year, and especially, as we're closing this, we're gonna have to become a killer machine at attracting the right sort of people into the company, right? It's not just about attracting the right sort of customers. It's about attracting the right sort of people that believes in the same things that you believe, that can take into account the values and that you put forward, but also that can represent you, and what you stand for out there, but also can make you better, right? And I think that for us, obviously, there are the technical challenges, right? Like Apple and Facebook, going into war, and all these crazy things, right? That, I mean, that's our bread and butter, right? Like we take into those challenges every single day on behalf of our customers, to solve, to fix, and to scale. But, in order for us to be able to remain in delivering the level of service that we do, it's really about people, right? At the end of the day, the technology comes, and we've been able to build all these different things that we've been able to do because of the people that we've been able to, to bring along.
Just to add to that, the people thing. I think the general public, or client sometimes might think that like the technology is this abstract thing that builds itself, and it doesn't. People build technology. Like it's all about people. The people is a manifestation of the technology is a manifestation of people's ideas and people's hard work. And it's funny, my personal evolution of my mindset since we started this thing went from worrying about myself and my effect on the business and whether I was working hard enough or doing a good enough job and whether I was good as everybody else, and especially when I was like the digital total moron in the company. I'm just a words person and a motor mouth. Then I started worrying about the clients when we started to get clients, and I was just always worried about the clients. The right service? Are they gonna leave us? We don't have any contracts. We don't know what we're doing. We're making it up as we go along. And now I'm worried about our people. And because we've got more people, but also the people look after everything else. They look after the clients, they build the technology, they help us build the company, and they look after your people, and the people maketh the company. And that's been, as we've grown very, very quickly, we've tripled the size of the company in the past year, and we'll probably do it again over the next year. And now I'm just like worried all the time about our employees and like if they feel okay. And I think it's heightened in this remote world that we're living in, right? I mean, we've always been a remote company, but we've always been in the office and then had other people working remote, and now we're all remote. And I worry about, some people just sat on their own in a really far off part of the world, and I don't really understand their culture, and I've never been to their country before, and how are they feeling, and how do I talk to these people? And I mean, I'm just very, very honest and very open with our employees and always ask them how they're feeling all the time. But it's funny, that mindset as you start to grow a company, it's just about worrying about people and less about the business per se, and less about the clients.
Yeah, it's that transformation, I think, and and the rest follows, kind of, right? I mean, in a way, I mean, something, one of our biggest sources of customers is referral from other customers, right? I mean, people telling other people, and I think that also keep us humble as well, right? And keep us grounded as well in a way that you're also kind of like you need to deliver on that because somebody else has put their worth ahead of you, right, in many ways, and making sure that you translate that into your team as well is key.
Yeah. So I mean, in the end, like if you really like even root cause that, you're thinking hiring attracting the right people, like the killer machine of right people is actually your sales funnel, right? If you think it like that, right? And so everything with you guys, starts with culture and like the quality and the quality of hiring, right? And that also leads in the end to more sales. Yeah, that's fascinating if you think about it.
No,
like
it
that,
is. I
right?
mean, and that's the thing, right? I mean, I think is the realization that no matter, it can be that, 80% of our business is tech driven, right? I mean, it's tech at the core, right? But that 20% of humanity that sits in between, that makes a major difference. It's what makes the other 80% work, scale, deliver, right? I mean, and at the end of the day, in marketing, it's a human business, right? Like you're talking to humans, right? You're talking to, to emotions, right? You're leveraging that to give people, what they're after in a way that is responsible, right? And which is why, we also, choose very, very, very much who we want our names to be associated with, right? And sometimes that means saying no to big sizable contracts, right? But it stands with you, right? And sometimes,
If you're a tobacco or a gambling company or anything remotely like that, we are never going to work. We are always going to say no. So don't even reach out.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny, right? I mean, we have friends that work on on some of those industries, and just like they play a role, and it's funny, like because a lot of the role that they're playing now is saying no or making up for the things of the past. But I think we have a chance to stand behind. I mean, it's like Facebook, right? I mean, it's not like we're blind to a lot of the things that can go wrong there, but also the fact that, there have been politicians who have come to us, to want to use our technology and our services, and we've said no, right? I mean, and especially because, we know the power of some of this stuff, but just because, you can kill with a knife, it doesn't mean that you're not going to use a knife for the right things, right? It's about, how you make sure that your technology, your services, the one thing that you stand up every day, is actually using their, for good and for the right things, rather than, stigmatize the things. Just, you were talking just like that with, earlier about the stigma that sits around, refugees and all this. I mean, people think that somehow they're all people are coming and gonna come in and work out of benefits and stuff like that. No, they don't, right? I mean, there is, Saria, right? In your team, right? I mean, a kid, amazing kid that came from Syria, right? I mean, and he's super bright, super smart, that we get to collaborate with him every single day. And is the type of impact that can have, right? I mean, we see it a lot with Venezuelans. We have Venezuelan members in the team. Like the only reason they have had to leave their countries is because of political reasons that drives a lot of this stuff. It doesn't take away from the value and the impact that they can have, in your business in the world.
Most people at the end of the day, 100% would just want to be able to determine their own future and have some control over their future. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, it's about money, and it's about having a job and being seen to be, being seen to be going to church on Sundays and things like that. And I think, again, it's one planet. We need a one planet solution. Robin, any final words? Any parting words of wisdom?
Any other question as well? Like you turn it around and it's all right.
I'm actually using this. I've already had 2-3 ideas based on what you say, so I'm busy writing those ideas down. It's always what happens, right? Like I get all these ideas from how you do things. What's it called? Parting words. I mean, like I just generally believe that nowadays I think we should really, like, even though money plays such a big role in our society, and I do believe that for all the people who are starting a business, I think they should really think about building a business which impacts our planet in one way and builds a culture that puts people at the center, or humans at the center. And I think that is really what will drive success in the future, and ultimate also happiness, right? And I think that is also what I heard just now from you guys, and I've just taken up your words now.
No, but I mean, thanks, Robin. I mean, everybody, that's our podcast for today. I mean, I hope you enjoy it as much as we've done, recording today, having these experience, ranting or not, political or not. I mean, this is the world we live in, right? I mean, sometimes, we need to take stands, and everything that we do. So thanks, everybody, to tune in, to make it this far in this, random, beautiful conversation among friends. And, hopefully together we're making the world, a better place. Again, thanks for your support on this one. Go and listen to the first episode if you haven't done that. All of our handles and everything for Vinokilo, for us, and for everybody are in the screen. Follow Robin on personally. He has a lot of fun, stuff on Instagram and stuff. On the Saturdays, on the Sundays, goes, like bike like crazy, into the mountains of Germany. And I asked him, whether you were a model or not, because I mean, you're super fashionable. Tomsha was saying that, when he joined Vinokilo, he was all black, and now he wears like colorful clothes. It goes with this, but I mean, yeah, thanks for being here, and we hope that you get to experience some of this. As always, have a great day, and as we say in Costa Rica, pura vida. Bye bye.